Hello everyone, let's take a look at the markets today. After breaking above the 95.6 high time frame resistance we have been talking about for quite some time. It was a clean breakout after this rest on the daily and in the 4-hour charts. But I posted earlier today that we could see a correction finally in the daily trend for BTC, right? Since this impulse, this confirmation of the bullish divergence we've been monitoring for quite some time, and this bottom call that we thought it was very likely, again compared to summer. And why I believe this is the time for a correction, it is because this first impulse, I think it's exhausted right now. You could argue that also after this break above the 95k, there some kind of a slight various divergence here, right? Which is another sign of this impulse getting a little bit exhausted. And I'm not just saying I feel it's time for a correction because of this only, right? Even though I've been using the oscillators, but the stock RSI has been also pushing pretty much non-stop since April 8th, pretty much like a whole month, right? With some small chop around here, but not enough to reset completely the daily trend, because it was it was really strong. And so far what I'm seeing right now is BTC struggling to hold 96k. Anyway, it's the kind of weakened price action. It's predatory, small moves, because there is low volume. I wouldn't really care until Sunday, late Sunday here in Europe, right? When the markets in the US start moving, the futures and stuff, and we can see what's going on next week. We might see a start of the week with some hesitation after this strong impulse from the SPX as well, and into the FOMC. So that's nothing to worry about, in my opinion. The question is, will we hold this 95.6? It would be very bullish. I'm not really sure. We might retest this new kind of lower time frame support around 94, or even just come back to this demand area that we have been talking about again for quite some time. And so far it's just been, I think, a little bit front run. You would argue that this was the retest, right? It didn't really need much. But if we lose the EMA, right, would be the first time since this breakout, retest, and continuation here. It would be the first time. If we take a look at the previous run here in November, October, right, we have this first impulse. We have a very early correction, broke below, rejection at first, just some chop. Another one, another break below, right? Perhaps building a small bullish divergence here, right? This is why the daily, until it becomes really overheated, the same time the 4-hour chart was really overheated here. When we see that in the daily, we might expect the next move to be a bearish divergence, and that could be the start of the change trend of the last impulse, right? Of that daily leg that starts here, right? It's a choppy, of course, it's never straight up. We are even seeing it here with this vertical accumulation we've been talking about for quite some time. So if we break below, we perhaps start rollover, and it might just be a few days until the FOMC, and we see some, let's say there is no cut yet, I mean stability for the market with a potential cut in June. Okay, that's enough for continuation, right? And if we see some kind of dovish Powell, that would be even better. So we might just see a small push below and then a new leg back up. I wouldn't worry about this correction, and as long as the 1992K area holds. The thing is, BTC dominance, this was the arc that I drew back a few days ago, right? That was the kind of, I said that it could go a little bit high. I wouldn't really care because it's not time for altcoins yet. It's time for BTC to run, so I don't really care. The only issue here is that if BTC retraces and BTC dominance doesn't, alts are gonna suffer, right? So BTC drops like, let's say 4 or 5%, alts are gonna drop like 10, between, I don't know, 8, 10 to even 15, 12. That depends on BTC dominance, right? But I think that's temporary. For altcoins, I'm gonna show different charts now, and we're gonna see that it's just part of the uptrend, right? So again, even though BTC dominance is really, really strong, it keeps pushing up, I cannot, again, this is a daily divergence that I've been drawing for quite some time. The thing is, with every impulse higher, all I see is RSI is unable still to cross this daily level that I mentioned. Has been significant this cycle. Just take a look at this, right? Except for these initial breaks in 2023, since then, all the daily RSI hasn't been able to break above, and it still hasn't, right? Here in September, October, November, we had some few drops. It also looked like it would never stop climbing, right? No divergence here. The first one was here. After this big drop, initial drop in November, there was a bearish divergence here. A small drop, another one reinforcing the divergence, right? And then we had the big drop, which was the Q4 run. So far, it hasn't been as pronounced, but the bearish divergence is somehow building as well. It's still going up, and we might see some kind of rollover. The thing is, if BTC dominance is not done, we just keep retracing just a little bit and keep pushing. Again, I don't think this is gonna be forever. You already know my idea. I don't really care. I think the altcoins moment will arrive eventually. I'm just ready and holding. Remember, we can see in a matter of weeks or even days, altcoins erasing a whole months or weeks of downtrend in just a weekly candle. So when it happens, we want to be there, right? I'm gonna take a recent example, right? Because I used SUI to illustrate back here on the April 25th that it was a coin above the weekly. We have the weekly RSI, right? The cross, it was above the 200 days, right? It was above the 4 hours, again 200 moving averages, and here on the daily we have the break and the retest, which is a reclaim of the trend. But if you remember, I posted these was getting a little overextended on the daily. This was just a quick look at the chart, and I draw that perhaps we might cool off a little bit, right? A little bit chop until the next potential support area, right? Around 317. That this was a 368. Quick TA, right? This is the daily. I'm not saying it's gonna be over. It's just it's been a big impulse after these daily divergence, so it might just print a high low, and we continue. I wouldn't be worried at all. So we take a look at that chart now. What do we have? Well, don't fight the squiggly line, right? So it was posted here, and since then it's been like a little bit of chop. RSI obviously showing signs of exhaustion after this big impulse, and now we are breaking, right? It tried to battle. We have seen very big wicks here, rejection wicks, right? This was, I mean, you have several occasions to leave the market here if you want to just trade the daily, right? The thing is, we don't know how low it could go. It could just go sideways, but I think this support area is kind of a magnet, right? There was support here, support here, support here, resistance here, right? So it is, this impulse has left this level behind without any fight. So it is normal and expected for it to come back and push back up. The thing is, for now, it's going well. I posted pretty much that day as 368. The top was 380, right, for that day. And since then, it's been a 13% drop. And back to the support, it's around 17% drop, right? This is the daily. The thing is, it could just go back up, push back up, reinforce, and start creating a first bearish divergence. That would be bad. So when people think that, or want their coins to keep moving constantly, if that happened now, right, if SUI decided to push back up again, I think it wouldn't be healthy, because it is doing it from a overheated perspective, right? A situation that is not really recovered. It's like when someone is injured and is still not ready and tries to force the coming back, right? And it's not ready, and it eventually tells and shows that it's not ready yet. So it could really do something like this, right? And start building this that could end up in a bigger drop. So I would rather see SUI hold here, perhaps coming back here, and then resume. This is the time when people who don't know what they're doing see that perhaps for 2 weeks in May or something, their coin is suddenly not going up, and perhaps there are other coins going up. The thing is, this coin was ready as for my requirements, so to speak, and that's why it has pushed so far so fast, while others haven't done that yet. Doesn't mean this is the coin that's going to outperform. This is why people just see green candles and drop their bags and start chasing, because they think their bags are shit and they are not going to move. They're just not following a strategy. I only posted that it was ready, right? It was a good example. And then my friend OB Crypto also noted the 4-hour bearish divergence that same day. That same day, and that was Confluence. So that's good. That's another confirmation for these to play out. However, what's important here, that's what I said, that perhaps many people are impatient. This is a clear change in the trend, right? In fact, I'm going to use this the same way I've been using these trend changes for BTC. I'm going to use it for SUI, right? First, we have this double top on the RSI here. This was a be careful kind of sign, right? And then we have the bearish divergence. If you leave here, yes, perhaps you 440, let's say, to 5.2. Yes, you miss 37%. Imagine you live here in the first bearish divergence at 23%. Yes, you leave that on the table. But if you didn't leave here, why would you leave here? Oh, because you think this divergence is reinforced. Imagine you don't see what happened next. Do you really believe you would have left here? I don't think so. But if you didn't, instead of leaving, not losing money, but leaving some on the table, you would have held a 65% drop. And now, even after this impulse, you would still need a 50% move for a break even. So you would need almost a 3x, 2x, right? 3x to be back where you should have sold, right? So again, the importance here is in the change of the trend, right? We saw here the first signs with RSI not really making, you could say, yes, a lower low, but not as sharp as in price. Again, if you have some doubts, or if you prefer, which I would recommend, you prefer to wait until BTC finds its bottom before deploying into altcoins, right? We know BTC drags them all. Then you have these, right? I'm gonna change the color to make it clearer. Let's just, I don't know, green. So here we already start seeing a change in the RSI. High highs and high lows, even though price is still not reflecting it. Then we reclaim it, right? We make a high low, still not a high high, but price is compressing. And this is the key, it is reclaimed. And then suddenly we have the impulse and we have a high high and potentially a high low, even if it comes back to 280. I don't care. It could, why not? It's a high low and it's all good. This is a change in the trend, the same way it did here, right? In summer. High high, high low, same, pretty much high high. We could say this is a lower low, right? But it is a higher low in this whole trend. It's already looking different. If you take a look here, you can see it's always going down. Here it looks like it wants to go up, and then suddenly you have the move to the upside, while from here it starts shifting. The same way here, price still needs some time to reflect the change in the trend, the strength that is below price, right? It's behind the price. The same way here, people only focus on price. They don't identify the weakness that is building, right? And that's something, there are so many examples. That's something that we have to pay attention to. Same here. Kind of a vertical accumulation, high, 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 low, high, 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 low, right? Yes, oscillators help, of course they do, right? You could argue here, high, 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 low, high, 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 low, but you need to also combine with oscillators. Here, oscillators are not pointing to any kind of divergence, nor bullish nor bearish. So just, yeah, we respect price. But here, it starts to change. And that's how these second, especially, it's a confirmation that something is weakening. And again, it's March, late March 24. Everything was really overheated. If we switch to a weekly, you can see that even on the weekly, it was changing, right? If you see, this is the kind of weekly candle that people are waiting for, but they don't know when it's going to happen. We just saw that destruction on the daily that made this candle possible. We don't know how big the candle is going to be. We just have to be ready, right? So I think many coins are looking like this. I'm going to just chart HBAR, for example, which is one of the coins that really outperformed here in Q4. And we're going to take a look and analyze this coin. First of all, from the weekly perspective, which is my main time frame. So this is my main reference and the one that I'm gonna first take a look at. And if we see the trend in summer, this is pretty much very chopped from the bear market bottom, right? Some people could argue that this coin was dead, right? This was the bottom, wasn't really tested here, perhaps making higher lows, right? Some overheated signs here with a wick, yes. And then you could argue that this was a lower low. The difference is this. Yes, you could also say, well, we had a bearish divergence here, right? Of course we did. And sometimes it's difficult to know if they have already played out or not. But if I see a few weeks and a 30% drop, I think I have plenty of data with this to know that this bearish divergence has already played out. But at the same time, a new one new bullish divergence has been forming. All I know is that if I bought here or here in the reclaim, right? As I have said it many times, when you buy, you get the reclaim week, the new weekly leg normally starts. Even if I buy here, if I only pay attention to price, I see it's a lower low, but all I see is a retest with a little fake out of the MA after breaking above 4. I don't know, the first moment it was lost, it was in March, the top in March. And kind of the first reclaim in September. Even if you buy here, yes, you initially, right? Let's say you buy in September, the breakout. You have to wait like 1.5 month with a 50%, 15% drop. But you can see that this is yes, the retest and the bullish divergence, so all good. So the moment it reclaimed, it went sharp. This is something we don't know it's going to happen. I think it was propelled by the ETF news or whatever for HBAR. The thing is, charts were already hinting at something powerful. And this makes me think that if here we had the announcement of the ETF, right? This last push was forced by big pockets to make you drop, to make you quit, to make you sell them into a very, very juicy low, right? That's a 50%, right? So 50% lower means that going back to that entry is already like a 20% more. And from there, it's a 7x, more than a 7x, until 88. Again, you don't really need to wait for a bearish divergence. When you reach such high RSI, you can wait, of course, and perhaps wait for a bearish divergence. We don't know if that's going to happen, right? Ask yourself this, because it's very easy, again, to analyze everything in hindsight. But all these bars, which are wicks, how would you react for 2 weeks seeing the price has been going down and you thought about selling here, but you didn't? How would you react mentally for 2 weeks? This 41% drop. What do you do now? Do you hold and pray for a bounce? Do you sell because you think it's going lower? Because it's still above the MA. Yes, you might say, I'm going to wait until the MA breaks, right? Which is, I buy the breakout, I sell the breakdown. Perhaps when it happens, it's not with a bearish divergence, it's with price already here. That could be a 50-60% drop, right? Luckily, by the time it broke here, right, instead of going 40%, it's around 30%. Perhaps you could sell here when you see, okay, there's a bearish divergence, and perhaps you are lucky enough to sell here. In my opinion, that's a bit risky. Why? I mean, there are so many coins. The only advice I would say in this market is not to marry your bags. I don't care about the project. It's all about compounding your portfolio. So imagine you sell here and it keeps going up. No problem. You will be able to load up on a different coin later on. The thing is, preserving money, I think it's wiser than trying to squeeze a little bit more and then backhold, suffer emotionally, mentally, and then pray for a bigger bounce just to go back to that level when you didn't want to sell. And again, by the time that bounce comes, perhaps you think, this is a new leg. Why should I sell here? It's not the same as selling here after this big impulse as selling here after reset, because this was exhausted and you might think this is a new leg. So it's not going to be easy. You might tell yourself, I will sell the next time it goes up. The thing is, when that time comes, you might not do it. You might think that perhaps now I should hold, right? And then you see the bearish divergence or not, and you eat the whole drawdown, right? So that's why I play high time frames. And if I play cycle, the whole cycle, I see this coin after this huge accumulation, right? This is one of the coins that didn't really do much until Q4, right? But structurally speaking, it could say was in accumulation, right? And it broke above that range. Let's say this is the range, right? With some deviations here. So buying here, this was a deviation, wasn't ready to break this range. It came back to pretty much retest the bottom, and then it decided to break. And when it did, so far it's been holding it. So if this holds and it's not a lower high and comes back to test it, this range has been left behind for good, right? And weekly RSI says it's not HBAR time yet, right? And considering it's just 2 days left from this week, I think this week is not gonna magically recover unless BTC dominance suddenly drops, which I don't really think this weekend. So it depends on where you allocate it. If you allocate it here, you don't really care about this, right? It's just going well, high highs, higher lows. Perhaps it's not time. So I said on the daily, many coins, while people are panicking, are resetting this first leg impulse, right? From the very bottom here, the RSI, initial push, hold, second push, in this case, break below, reject, tried, but got rejected, and now it's below. But the stock RSI is resetting. And the thing is, even going below, price hasn't really done much, right? So this coin from the bottom is clearly in an uptrend, a daily uptrend, right? Even if it comes back up to fill these wicks, I don't care. It's still in an uptrend, so it could really easily resume here. Wait for the FOMC the end of the next week and pump back up, right? There are many coins like this. I'm gonna just open some random coins and see what they are doing. Okay, here, this was the chart I had for Doge with the divergences here. Again, from here, for example, it still needed some more time to run, and that's why you have to be patient. You could say this is kind of a flat, right? But again, higher lows for the RSI. It was looking good. Another higher low, another higher high, until it decides to break. Perhaps you don't see it clearly here how it can break so high, but if we switch to the weekly, which we'll do later, we can see a clearer picture. Here, the daily, we have again, it might just go below, reset a little bit, but it is clearly a reversal in the making after this bullish divergence, right? Different structure if we take this one, but it is working on it, right? It looks even cleaner here. It's a 30% move, right? We posted here, and if we go to the weekly, what do we find? So far, Doge is still pretty much being rejected. Again, the same as HBAR. The coins that looked ready to cross this week are getting rejected now with this last couple of days rejection and BTC dominance going a little bit higher. I think that's another sign that the altcoins are still not ready. That's why I posted to check if your coins are above all these, because otherwise they still have to wait. If I open Doge, I see it hasn't crossed yet, or it was about to, it got rejected, right? And if I go to the 4-hour chart for Doge with the trend, I see that 4 hours is still above. It could retest it again. Remember this, and then the huge run up. Here's September, October. Look at this. February, boom, insane move up. It is reclaimed. The 4 hour is reclaimed. It has been reclaimed silently, while people only look if it's 15 or 17, and that's all they care. In their mind, it's not a big move. It's just 2 cents. I mean, it's a change in the trend, clearly. clearly. This is when real smart accumulation happens, when everyone's looking at somewhere else. Look at the daily. Still work to do, right? It looks similar to this, actually, what we see in August. Then, when we start toying around with this, these would be huge. Even if it's just reclaiming the lower bound, that would be a difference. Here it was rejected after losing it, and since then Doge has been quite far away, but it's working on a lower high. The moment it reclaims here, perhaps it comes a little bit lower. It's around 20 cents, 21, 22, right? Perhaps everything is pushing. That's why Doge might be silently pushing back here. People just think it's because the whole market is moving, but then by then the 4-hour would be still holding. The 200 could be in the process of being reclaimed, and by then the weekly will have a bullish crush, and all of a sudden you have the recipe for these kind of moves. And we have seen historically Doge really loves that. So if I had to position myself, I already mentioned and I shared for one of our friends here, I think it was Christian. I said this is the divergence you buy, right? So looking good, but we have to be patient. I can open again. I don't really care about these coins. You already know my coins, and if I open the XRP, which has been one of the strongest coins, this chart looks phenomenal. Wow, I didn't really pay attention to this much, but the same way people here was hating on it, it was slowly working on its way after being the 200 being flat forever. It was toying around with it. Even this was a change, right? The trend after being rejected for the pretty much whole 2024, right? Below 50 cents. This was a trend and change, and look at the explosion. Why? Because it had been in accumulation mode for very, very long time. Then you have this explosive move. So far, it has been one of the coins that has only printed a deviation from the 200. Not even BTC has done that, right? In fact, I'm gonna quickly move to BTC to show you that. BTC lost it and got rejected, right? And now it has reclaimed it. However, XRP, just a deviation is still above. It looks really, really strong. If I go to the 4-hour, I'm assuming it's also above. Yes, it's holding, right? It's holding. Perhaps this is a yes, after losing the 4-hour, after reaching 330 or something like that, lost it, rejected, fake out, rejected. Now slowly reclaim it and hold. This coin looks really, really, really ready to pop again. Really looks great above the 200. The 4-hour has been accumulating again. Whew. I think the next time it pops, 330 won't hold. I think this is gonna be surpassed 340 or whatever easily. Really, I think this is really, really strong. If I go to the weekly, well, the weekly, we don't really need the 200. We could argue, well, this is huge, but we could argue, I'm gonna change the colors in this case. We could argue that this, do we move it to here, something like that. We could argue this is a bull flag, right? I don't really care if you move the pole here, however you want to draw it, but I think we could argue this is a bull flag, right? After a big impulse. The thing, and something we have to be careful, is not to be overly positive with bull flags, because you can draw them as long as you want to, but this is a huge drop, and I wouldn't like to be holding this 84%. I think it's a bull flag in 2021, right? I mean, you have to look at some other things. In fact, I will look at all the oscillators first, all the moving averages, the daily and the 4 hours we have seen, and then perhaps I just look for some other confirmation or confluence if there is any. You could argue this is bull flag after such a big run, right? The thing is, still in a downtrend. It has to confirm that perhaps this was a lower higher low, and then we pop again, right? But it looks really, really good. It looks ready to pop anytime now. What else could I chart? I don't know, XLM, something that I have been people talking about. Well, very similar structure, right? Accumulation here for weeks. This is kind of a bottom formation, right? You can see it was from July to November, right? Like 6 months doing nothing, chopping people around, but no new lows were made, even higher lows. Yes, lower highs. So this was compressing, right? You don't know in what direction it could go, but considering this is a higher time frame, this was the bottom, and this was the low that was already holding with these wicks. I would bet on the upside, because these long wicks didn't allow price to go to retest even the lows here. This price was compressing, and I am sure if I open the oscillators, we can see some hints. Look at this, man. I really like when everything clicks, when everything aligns. We can see that even in this range, there was a sudden change here, right? It was chopping, toying around, faking above, right? This weekly, again, remember this is a weekly, overheated, lost it, very oversold, right? Very oversold. RSI, pretty much at bear market levels, but price wasn't. Price was holding above, and suddenly we reclaim with this impulse. Again, we come back here, and people might say, as I said, price was chopping people around. But here, silent reclaim, fake out, again above, showing something that we hadn't seen this whole cycle. Because we have fakes out, couldn't hold, perhaps here initial impulse here, it ended in this move, right? But then we started holding from July to November to October, hovering above. Yes, you could say it's overheated, but this is more important to me, being above or below EMA. This is a clear change in the trend, right? And all of a sudden, when it was ready, when the big move was building for 6 months, the gates are open and everything is released, the water is released, and we have this huge pump until 93 in the weekly. This is insane. Of course, the move, I guess, is at 7-8, well, 6x in 1, 2, 3 weeks. 6x, 3 weeks. You erased completely the whole bear market price action in 3 weeks. In fact, you go to this lower high bear, you could say a dead cat bounce here in summer 2021, even threatening the all-time high. So this is why I said so many times that you have to be ready, that you cannot be impatient, that you have to base your decisions in charts and technicals. We have in 3 weeks erased 4 years of downtrend. Pretty much, let's say, yeah, pretty much here. Pretty much 4 years of downtrend and 90% drop. And if you don't sell this huge 93, 95 RSI, because you think this is going to be higher later in the cycle, yes, it could. And in fact, it looks good, right? Thing is, why not sell? I'm not saying completely, and avoid this 70% drop. Even if you decide to enter back, when, I don't know, imagine you just wait until it breaks above the MA, so you wouldn't enter now. You might enter here or here when you have confirmation. or you risk to enter when you start seeing this move up, which is not confirmed yet. It could roll over. But again, you spare this 70% drop after a 6x. That's huge compounding, right? So this is why when things get moving, they can go very, very high in no time. 3 weeks, 6x. This coin is a tremendous example, right? And when I said that being above the 200-day moving average, the 4-hour with the weekly breakout, I think that only means that coin is ready to move sooner than others, but that horizontal structure remains king for future performance. Recently, we have seen Veracity. In fact, even we can see this high. I mean, this week it's a 50% move. What is this? People say, look at this strength. We have the breakout, by the way. The moment we break, we say it's acceleration. This coin was ready to move sooner than others. It's not that this coin is stronger than BTC. It's outperforming BTC because it's showing. Don't be fooled. It's just this coin will top sooner than others, simply because it started running sooner. We have seen DOGE, even ONDO, HBAR, that they were rejected here this week. It's not their time yet, but Veracity has already been running from the bottom, almost 120%. Big move, right? Strong coin. Well, I wouldn't say that. Why? I think it's obvious. This coin still has much to prove to say this is strong, because perhaps by the time it gets overheated like here, right, like here, it was February, right? By the time it gets overheated like here, I mean, this chart is only from 23. It's even worse if we go to here, for example. I'm gonna remove all this. So it's in a clear downtrend, right? So by the time, I don't know, this weekly cycle ends, it would need to break this local top in December, because otherwise it could again be rejected and these lows could be retested, or even worse, keep going down, right? I don't know, but this to me doesn't look strong, right? Here it slightly went above this February round, but it is below. In fact, it is now fighting the bear market lows. Exactly the bear market lows. Imagine getting rejected here. That would be terrible. But on the bright side, imagine all this, right, ends up just being a deviation below, a trap for many, and this now it starts running super hard, and people holding here or buying something here will suddenly, instead of being anonymous people who lost a lot and nobody knows about them, you will really start seeing that they were really, really intelligent and smart, and they knew what was going on. They didn't, right? It's just, you have to also be lucky and risky. I mean, this was a very risky move, but if it works out and it just ends up being a deviation, right? Could perfectly be. This coin could fly when everything goes insane, right? Why not? From here, I don't see any various divergence. I mean, what I don't like is a lower high, lower low structure, but it could really change fast, right? If we go to the daily, this coin, for example, I'm gonna remove all these drawings, we can see, isn't this funny? Where it's been rejected. Exactly for now, twice, by the way, at the bear market bottom level. This is not a coincidence, right? RSI could still push again a little bit. Why not? Still has room. In fact, it's just crossed the 70 mark, right? But again, look where it's rejected. don't be fooled when you see something like this. No, I don't care what coin it is, and you think that this coin is really strong and you're missing out because your coin isn't moving. Perhaps your coin has a way better structure, but its time is not yet. It's working on a different kind of cool off period. It's just a different time frame. Not every coin moves at the same time. Perhaps when there is full euphoria, pretty much everything is pumping, but even then, not at the same time completely. Perhaps there are some weeks of difference between one another, right? But the thing is, structure, high time frame structure is way more important. I don't know. Let's just open Cardano. I'm just opening random coins, right? Just I don't have them in my. We can see compared to Veracity that again this is a coin that's been rejected weekly. It's not its time yet, but since the bottom, high high, high low, high high, high low for now. So you don't really need much to enter in full euphoria mode. In fact, the weekly looks like it's getting ready for a new move, right? And even if I go higher to the monthly, ooh, I like what I see here. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. We can see that after this big pop, the monthly has held. Got rejected here because it wasn't its time yet, but it's holding the monthly, right? This is huge. Many coins, not even BTC, haven't done this yet. So this is good. So when can we see our coins running? This is the recipe. Weekly, daily breaks above the MAs, and this MAs holding, right? So let's go to the our beloved BTC dominance, right? Again, it keeps going above this arc, well, kind of arc that I said. I said perhaps do something like this and drop. I'm not trying to predict, I'm just trying to assess what I see. And the thing is, this divergence still being prolonged. I mean, I'm not trying to force and believing that this is still valid. Come on, give it to me. I don't care. I don't care how long it takes. I still really think this is overextended. It's been running for almost 1,000 days, as we have seen, and it's time to roll over will come eventually. I'm not worried about this, and that's what I think. I mean, no one knows for sure. That's my bet. The thing is, with every new impulse, right, higher, RSI hasn't been able. It's true that it's been holding this kind of bottom, but it hasn't been able to break above this initial push, and except for these initial pushes here in 2023, the earliest stages of this bull market, especially from October, which was the first time we had seen this Q4 2023, the first rally into the ETF launch, and then we had the mania in March and February, these pushes, right? And then we have Q4. Since then, since the first, let's say, mini old season, we can see that the daily RSI hasn't been able to cross above this, let's say, 76 mark. Topped here in November, February, with this spike couldn't close above, and even here in April, right? So I think that could be significant, right? And perhaps we have some bigger push, and then it starts rolling over. Again, in November, it looked like it wouldn't stop climbing, right? We have seen this first smaller drop here, also like catch up a little bit here. Then we had the first daily divergence. We could argue this was the reflection, right, of the bearish divergence. Okay, another push, but perhaps again this various divergence reinforced. Here we haven't seen such sharp drops, but you could argue this divergence is still forming, not as aggressively as here, because we haven't had these drops, which, by the way, eventually gave up, and it brought us this Q4 run, right? It could happen at any time. In fact, it's still not very far from the Fibonacci level, not even 1%, like half a %. So the moment it loses it, if it does, there isn't much support here, perhaps down until 62, right? Because here it was building some kind of support, reclaim it, toying around, right? In fact, when it lost it here, it didn't have much support, and even almost go down to 53 something, all right? 53.4. It ended in 55 or 54. Thing is, the moment it rolls over, it might not find real support, because if you go into the weekly, we can see, let me remove all these drawings, right? If you go to the weekly, we can see that yes, it could perhaps support here in the Fibonacci, but if it loses it, there isn't much support in the way. Again, the 62 level kind of support, but it's been pretty much straight up, so it could do the same thing on its way down. And in fact, again, weekly, that's still unable to make it, getting really over. So again, this could stand for quite some time. It doesn't mean it has to be an instant rollover, right? But it doesn't look that good. And now that we have the April monthly close, we can see that now it's starting to get into the overheated area, 72, right? Still no various divergence, but getting really overheated. Will it get to extreme levels? I don't know. I don't really think this is gonna be filled. I think that's too much, right? Would be like 9% move, which is even greater than the from November to current levels. I think that would be market crash. So I don't bet on that. I think that's I can't bet in such on such extreme moves, right? So all I've been showing is that altcoins are doing fine after their first initial impulse, right? Like the daily from Cardano, for example, right? This is the first impulse. I'm gonna switch it here. First impulse from the bottom, right? It's doing well. Initial impulse, like going together with BTC, but not their time to outperform. But clearly reversing, right? Gonna just do it like this. Yes, changing the behavior, the trend. This is something we want to see, right? It's all looking good for many coins. Some again will run sooner than others, so don't worry if yours is not, and you see some other random coins, and you perhaps start searching and looking for information. What is that coin doing? Has there been any news about it? Should I drop mine to chase? Just, I think by now you should have charted your coins and see how they're doing and why you first invested in them. And if everything is looking good, structurally speaking, especially higher time frame, weekly mostly, don't worry about it. I think everything is going its way. Yes, BTC dominance pushing that far is making your alts suffer a bit more. If I open CoinGecko, I can see that these drops for BTC, I mean 1% in the last 24 hours can make coins go 3%, and perhaps even retracing previous gains, right? 2%, 2.6, some coins even 4%. Even going red in the weekly, 12% or 10%. Some coins are not, right? Because they're in a different point in their cycle. Like NIA, which was really strong last year, it is suffering for now. It is not ready yet. ONDO, which is one of mine, 12% drop after a big impulse in the daily. Here, for example, yes, 12% drop, but we also had this random 20% move. And again, I said that perhaps you are worried about, I'm going to take ONDO as an example. You're worried about your coins retracing or not moving much while they are fully resetting for the next move. Look at this. Look at where ONDO is getting to. Pretty much the same stock RSI level as before this initial impulse that brought a 50% move. So imagine it retraces back here. Another 50% move. It goes back to 127, right? It's all looking good. The path is clear, right? The bullish divergence is playing out. It's all good. I'm not worried at all. At all. In fact, if I open the daily, that precise coin, you can use Fibonacci for some potential structural supports, right? Look at where ONDO is trying to hold now. Again, high, perfectly rejected at 0.5. Retested and hold for now 0.382. And the daily, look at this. It's wonderful. It's very good looking. In fact, I hope this holds, perhaps some wicks. If this holds, the next daily impulse might go right into the golden ratio, which was resistance. So again, I wouldn't be worried even if it hits here and retraces another 20% back here. I don't care. The structure is changing, right? And that's all I want and that's all I need. Again, this is textbook. I couldn't worry about this technically. Yes, no one wants to see these. We only accept big green moves, but that's how it is. If you want to see these huge candles, you have to wait for the trend change and some volatility in between. That's what I don't really like about the daily, except for the analyzing the trend. And on the weekly, this coin has been rejected last week. It's not its time yet, right? It wasn't here in summer. It looked like it wasn't even sharper because look at this. From October, it went really, really sharp going down. And it looked bad. Another 30% move with a fake out. Imagine you give up here because you see a fake out. When I see a high low. High low is, again, it's not only oscillators. It's firstly structural or horizontal structure, and then oscillators for confluence, right? If I see a high low, no divergence of any kind, I don't really care about this, right? I mean, it's not really that important. This could be a fake out the same way we saw a fake out on the weekly for BTC. Remember this? When I posted the horizontal kind of bull market support, we have this fake out. I don't really care. This is just a fake out because there are other, like the 50 weekly and this horizontal structure that are holding. And by the way, look at this perfect price action, right? We need this reclaim because otherwise this could be a dead cat bounce. Others could say this is a V-shaped recovery. We will only know in hindsight, right? So everything's looking good. Just give the market some time to digest these huge moves. We have also seen that on the SPX, right? It is doing really well right now, battling these high time frame support. We have a crush after being rejected twice, which I warned around 6K that it was double rejection. 6K. Now, from this very, very oversold level, which I posted on a different post, that the good thing about crashes is that they reset oscillators really fast. Since then, I posted that at 5K, 560, something like that, right? We had this final leg down and push back up. Insane performance since. And now we have the weekly cross. The thing is, will it be a fake out and a rollover because it rejects here? And this is a bear market bounce. Remember, this is the weekly, right? Or if we go to the monthly and we see this is ridiculous, man. And we see this huge correction, bear market level for stock RSI. So you can say sentiment needs to be reset. There's complacency. There is no fear. I mean, come on. This has erased all the excitement from stocks, and then you see this ridiculous monthly candle, which could really sign that's a reversal, right? Perhaps continuations and drops, but again, if there is something here, RSI was completely over. So here, 2009. I mean, again, technicals telling you this is the monthly. Remember, this is a historical opportunity to load. Even if it goes a little bit lower, how lower could it go? Right? Let's take a look at the previous example. Again, these lows were never revisited. I think this is insane, and this structure is still holding very, very strong. In fact, the monthly RSI, yes, printed a lower low here, but we could argue that fear really has taken the market. But technically speaking, you could argue these could be an overreaction, that these looks still good. Yes, you could say, well, I could draw that kind of divergences and fool myself. Are you sure? Because I can't drive this here and draw this here. Sorry, it's no divergence here. You could say, well, but this is too stretched, like too far. Yes, you could say that. But they are working, right? So, again, this reset, you could say, okay, it's holding the same level, RSI-wise. Stock RSI is really dropped. This was the bear market bottom. Perhaps not here exactly, you have another drop. But the full euphoria here in August was completely reset. These resulted in this correction. These divergence resulted in the COVID crash. Isn't that interesting? Yes, COVID crash, but it seemed like a correction was pending. Thing is, everything looks reset. So the moment we have some spark from a China agreement or even Europe agreement, something like that, mostly China, this could really run fast. And by the time that happens, I said also in a different post that by the time a new narrative takes place, price in case of BTC could be 15-20k higher, and that's what we have seen so far, 20k higher from the bottom right now. And we still don't have any official agreement on China. Think about that, right? Because sometimes narrative just trigger panic selling, emotional actions, but technicals remain here, right? Are king. Yes, it's hard to buy here. It really feels terrible because you think it can go lower, but if you base all your moves on technicals, how much lower can it go? Yes, you could say, well, it could keep going lower. Why not? You buy here and it goes lower. Yes, there's a small bounce, but it goes even lower. Well, if you believe in technicals and I buy here and it goes lower, let me remove it all. Buy here, it goes lower. You could say, well, but the RSI is holding. But then I see these, and you say, man, it's over. Really? If you bought here based on technicals, these should reinforce your strategy and say, okay, I'm doubling down here. I mean, if I thought this was a good price, this is even better. This is a bargain, and we have some confirmation that perhaps the bear market is over. This is the weekly, right? and then it looks wonderful. You don't care about this drop because your entry, perhaps your average is here. You bought first here, then here, your average is here. Would you really sweat all this? Right? That's the, by the way, we posted, was building various divergences for months. Again, this is the tricky part with divergences. Imagine you sell here because it's building a divergence, and then you see this. And even in this drop, yes, you could temporarily be able to buy a little bit lower, but from August to February, you would see the market going up and up and up. It's tricky, right? Especially when there are some small corrections in between that reset enough to keep pushing, right? That's why then you move to the monthly, to the highest time frame to see if there's any kind of sign. Again, it's tricky. That's why also taking profit progressively is a strategy, because no one knows if it will keep pushing or if it just will drop hard. That's why whatever you choose, be at peace with yourself. Again, if you have taken decisions based on your strategy, you should be okay with the result, and don't fight your logical decisions and go back right into the market because you see another green candle. So everything looks good despite some temporary chop. This is my coin. Even this week is 4% down, even higher from here. I don't really care, to be honest. I'm comfortable in spot holding. I've been accumulating around 70 something. I saw this. I only saw some part of it, again, because my entry, I have a higher risk appetite here. I've learned to deal with it and accept it emotionally, right? Because you can't have a play such risk moves and then react and not have your emotions aligned with that and be fearful every time there is a pullback, because then you shouldn't have taken such risks. But I could have sold way more. Always in hindsight, it's easy to say. But I believe altcoins, their time is still pending. So having an entry of 70 something, and I think it's 76, something like that. Again, if you believe, if your strategy says that it's a very likely scenario where alts really outperform, this entry could look like a golden entry, right? So I don't really sweat this. Is this tiring and exhausting? Yes, but that's the market. It is designed that way, to make you sweat, to make you get tired, exhausted, and give up right when you shouldn't. This is not easy, otherwise everybody would be making it and there wouldn't be plebs gambling their money. This is hard, but it is very rewarding. And the good thing, the final thought here is that this is the only place where if you grow, if you improve, you compound, right? You get rewarded, and you can get rewarded greatly, right? This is the good thing. Everything you learn, everything you improve is reflected in your portfolio. And there is no other place like this. Even if you are now underwater, which I've been for years since I joined 2021, it's really painful. I was underwater until late 2023, right? But it's worth it if you try to learn and not just wait for my bags to pump again and pray for them to pump and just exit, yes, but without learning anything. Because even if you make it, if you're lucky to be, I don't know, perhaps we are just a few months from a historical old season, but if you haven't learned, you will probably round trip all that money. This is the time to learn, to strengthen your strategy, and just wait to execute. We might be just a few clicks from making real good money. So I'll try to help you. At the same time, I help myself, and I keep sharing everything I know and testing my strategy. Perhaps this is all useful for all of you. even though we are not many people in this channel, but even if it's just a small community of people making it, then it will be worth it. Okay guys, have a nice weekend and see you around.